Welcome everybody, it's Rory at vPOPpro.com, and I thought we'd do a planning video for a cranial closing wedge ostectomy. And so in this video we're going to be planning for 5 degrees of tibial plateau angle postoperatively using an isosceles wedge, and showing how you can reliably produce that plan every time with absolute precision using the vPOP tools. We're going to explain and talk about tibial long axis shift, what it is, how to accommodate it, and the importance of where you site your apex of the wedge, how that influences our plan. So vPOP is a dedicated veterinary preoperative orthopedic planner. It's a hybrid web app for your iPad, iPhone, macOS and Windows. One subscription for all your devices. Just click Get vPOP at the website and download it. We're imminently about to get a browser version too, so that means you'll have your access on your Android device as well. One of the ways to stabilize the tibial cranial subluxation is to reduce the magnitude of the tibial plateau, and one of the ways to do that is to remove a wedge from the cranial aspect of the proximal tibia. So in order to plan for that, we need a quality radiograph. We need it to be centered and on the tibial plateau angle, to be collimated out to extend and meet our landmarks, the center of the talus, and we need a calibration marker so that we can have a reference point from which to measure. All right. Well, once you've imported your radiograph, you'll get a message from vPOP, and it will come up with this center in the message. It's a centered message here, and it's going to ask you to calibrate from your marker. So you just click OK, and it'll give you a blue line here to delineate over your calibration reference and distance. So we can move it around, we can pan it around, we can tap on each end of the line to go into precision mode so that our finger doesn't obscure the end of the line here. And we can either from a circular marker or a linear marker, we can then take our measurement point. So here we've got a marker in view of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 centimeters. So on your calibration palette on the left, we're just going to click Other, and we're going to tap in 7 centimeters here and click Done. And then at the bottom left, we click Calibrate Image, and now vPOP has a reference here. So the next thing we're going to do is to calculate our tibial plateau angle. Now going to choose a measuring tool from the top right there, to delineate our tibial long axis. So up comes our line, we move it to the landmark center of the talus, and we then move the proximal line to course through the intercondylar eminence here. And then we need another line to then delineate the tibial plateau. So we're going to click on the top right to get the menu again, go to Tools, measure a line here, and now we're going to delineate the tibial plateau. So we're going to move it in. We can zoom in at any point that we want to, just to get extra precision. I think we're there now. So the tibial plateau angle itself is the differential between the line, the joint orientation line, and the perpendicular to the tibial long axis, which is just a wordy way of saying, let's get the perpendicular here and move it up. So we move our angles in view. The angle here of 30 degrees is our tibial plateau angle. So if I take a pointer and stick it to that and move in, this is our tibial plateau angle here, preoperative, 30 degrees. And our aim is to get that angle to 5 degrees postoperatively. So the next thing we need to do is to calculate the wedge angle that we need to remove to create a postoperative tibial plateau angle of 5 degrees. So for now, we're going to create a wedge of 30 degrees minus 5 of 25 degrees. And to do that, we need to go to the menu, we go to Tools, and we click Wedge Tool. So we're going to move our wedge around an apex here. We're going to create our wedge of 25 degrees. And the wedge has a base of 10.2 millimeters. So now we're going to start cutting to mimic the ostectomy itself. And now we're going to delineate the bone that we're going to move from one end of the green line to the other, and we're going to click done, and that wedge ostectomy is now going to be reduced. So now let's check our post-operative plan TPA. It should be 5 degrees. So it's better to check our plan now than our post-operative radiograph. So remember, the TPA, the tibial plateau angle, is the difference of the perpendicular line, of the mechanical axis to the joint orientation line. So let's just take that perpendicular line and move it up slightly. And now we're going to tap on the 90 degrees and we're going to activate the paired line tool in vPOP. So we're now going to move the mechanical long axis to the new position of the intercondylar eminence. And now let's retask our joint orientation line. So it's going to move that up. That's probably the best fit there. So, not 5 degrees. We took a wedge that was 5 degrees less than our preoperative tibial plateau angle, and we didn't get a 5-degree remnant tibial plateau angle. Is that odd, or should we expect that? So that's this angle here, 10.8 degrees. So why didn't we get 5 degrees post-operatively in our plan? Well, the reason for that is the second aspect of this video, which is tibial long axis shift. So if we visualize exactly what we've done, and we've taken our wedge out here, we've started cutting, and if we keep our eye on that intercondylar eminence and we watch how it moves cranially, our reference point has moved. So the very act of what we're doing is invalidating our reference point. So if we just concentrate on how that affects our calculations for a moment, let's just look at our perpendicular here. We're going to tap on the 90 degrees here, activate the paired line tool. Watch how that tibial plateau angle is increasing. 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 34.9. So the very act of what we're doing is increasing the wedge that we need to take out. That's tibial long axis shift. Shut. And this time we're going to track the long axis shift. So what we need is a 5-degree post-operative tibial plateau angle. So in vPOP we have this neat little tool where the second line that you bring on when your stifle is facing to the left comes in at your target 5-degree tibial plateau angle, as in the difference from perpendicular is 5 degrees here. So what we're going to look to do now is to click on the 95 and we're going to track that long axis shift. Then we're going to tap on our wedge fragment again and we're going to rotate it now more until our articular surface tangent matches the target TPA. So the actual wedge we need to remove is 30.1 degrees. We've had to rotate the bone more about the 25-degree wedge apex to 30.1, a 30.1 wedge. So now let's make a note of exactly where we've placed the apex of our isosceles wedge by drawing up a pointer like so. We now delete the wedge and we start again and just place a wedge that is 30.1 then start cutting, we should get the precise finish of a postoperative tibial plateau angle of 5 degrees. Let's click done and see. Boom, there you go. So that's an isosceles wedge ostectomy that gives us the 5 degrees. We go to our annotations up in the top right, to tools, we click text, and we bring up our text box. So where it says custom text in our text box, we can then have a look at our different plans that we've got here. We've got some customized text, so we're just going to click on that. So we're going to type patient, let's put his name as Hank, and then the operative site is left, tibial plateau angle, if we needed to note that, was 30, and the wedge angle we needed was 30.1 in this case, and the wedge base that we said was 11.9. So 11.9 for our wedge base. And then D1 and D2, these are measurements that can be taken and are very important so that we can recreate the exact point of the apex. So let's measure D1 and D2. So D1 is going to be 13.2. And 22.5. So we can make a note of those as well. So that is the D1 and D2, the isosceles wedge magnitude and position. And then we can note what plate we need to template with. By going to implants, we can go to any plate we want to, any manufacturer we want to. Let's choose a Synthes plate. Let's choose a TP load plate here. And we can move these in and around, choose the right orientation as well, and move it up through the different sizes for the optimal plate size. So for the final topic in this video, we're just going to illustrate why the position of the apex of the wedge is important. If we sight our apex at the red arrow, in order to follow and reach a tibial plateau angle of 5 degrees, we're going to have to take a wedge out of 26 degrees. We can now check that with our tracking tool. At the yellow arrow, we'll do the same. We'll rotate by this point to mimic a wedge, and we'll keep rotating till we get to 29 degrees. We can just confirm that by placing it on our intercondylar eminence that's moved cranially to the yellow point on the left of each stifle. And then if we move across to the green arrow and position our wedge apex there, we can now see the implications of sighting a wedge at this point. So at 31 degrees now, we're going to achieve our tibial plateau angle postoperatively of 5 degrees. The more distal you sight your wedge, the greater the long axis shift, and therefore the greater the wedge angle has to be to reach your target.